The hum is wrong. I lean closer to the medical monitor in the common room, my fingers brushing the cool edge of the console, and watch the numbers jump, then flatten, as if the machine itself isn't sure what's real. George stirs his coffee behind me, quiet as always, pretending not to notice my furrowed brow. This building looks bright and tidy, but I've seen too many small warnings brushed aside, too many alarms dismissed as nothing. Then I spot her. Alex, a young technician, has moving carefully among the devices, jotting notes no one asked for, her eyes sharp and alert to what everyone else ignores. There's something about her that feels different, precise, determined, unafraid of the rules that usually protect the careless. Have you ever noticed when things are supposed to work, but you can't shake the feeling something's off? Stay with me to see how quiet courage, careful records, and unexpected allies can turn small acts into real change, and how a single maintenance log can reveal what everyone else overlooked. The hum woke me first, low, insistent, like a mosquito trapped behind glass. I opened my eyes to the dim blue glow of the alarm clock, 6:17 a.m. George slept beside me, his breathing slow and even, one hand resting on the quilt we'd brought from the old house. I lay still, listening. The sound wasn't coming from our apartment. It drifted through the wall from the common room next door, a rhythmic buzz that shouldn't have been there at all. I eased out of bed, careful not to wake him, and pulled on my robe. The hallway was empty, fluorescent lights already humming their own monotone welcome. I pushed open the door to the common room and found the source. The medical monitoring station in the corner, its screen flickering between numbers that made no sense. Heart rate jumping from 60 to 120. Oxygen levels dipping, spiking, settling, then plummeting again. The device was supposed to track vital signs for residents who needed extra oversight. Mrs. Kapoor on the 3rd floor, Mr. Chen down the hall. But this wasn't tracking anything. It was just wrong. I stood there, arms folded, watching the erratic dance of digits. A door clicked open behind me, and I turned to see George shuffling in, still in his pajamas. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. "Listen." He tilted his head, frowning. "That's the monitor." "Has been for the last 20 minutes. He moved closer, squinting at the screen. "Maybe it's recalibrating." I didn't answer. I'd heard that excuse before. Last month, when the oxygen sensor in the north wing started beeping at odd hours. 2 months ago, when the medication dispenser jammed and spat pills across the floor. Every time, the staff had waved it off. Just a glitch. We'll get to it. But they never did. Not really. They'd reset something, smile, and move on. By the time we sat down for breakfast in the dining hall, the hum had stopped. I asked Denise, one of the morning aides, if anyone had looked at the monitor. "Oh, that?" She poured coffee into George's cup, her smile bright and practiced. "Yeah, maintenance reset it. All good now." "What caused it?" "Minor glitch." She moved to the next table before I could press further. George reached across and squeezed my hand. "You're doing it again?" "Doing what?" "Overthinking." I pulled my hand back, gentle but firm. "Someone should think about it." He sighed, the way he did when he knew I wouldn't let something go. I loved him for not arguing, but I also wished, just once, he'd share my unease instead of trying to smooth it over. We ate in silence, scrambled eggs, toast, the same breakfast we'd had 100 times. Around us, neighbours chatted about the weather, their grandchildren, the new plants by the entrance. Normal life, carrying on. But I kept seeing those numbers, the wild, impossible swings, and I kept hearing Denise's voice, minor glitch. By evening, George had settled into his chair with a crossword puzzle, and I took a walk. The hallways were quieter then, just the soft shuffle of slippers and the distant murmur of televisions. I passed the common room and stopped. The door was cracked open, and through the gap I saw her, a young woman in coveralls, dark hair pulled back, kneeling beside the monitoring station with a toolbox open at her feet. She wasn't resetting anything. She was taking the panel apart, her movements quick and precise, a penlight clamped between her teeth. I stepped closer. The floor creaked. She looked up, eyes wide, and pulled the penlight from her mouth. "Can I help you?" I folded my arms. "Who are you?" "Eleanor," I said. "Eleanor Brennan. I live 2 doors down." She glanced at the toolbox, then back at me, weighing something I couldn't name. "Alex. I do maintenance here. Contract work. At 7 in the evening." A flicker of something, annoyance maybe, or resignation, crossed her face. The daytime crew doesn't always get to everything. I stepped into the room, letting the door swing shut behind me. This morning, that monitor was showing heart rates all over the place. Staff said it was fixed. They reset it. Alex turned back to the panel, her hands steady as she reconnected a wire. "That's not the same thing as fixing it." "What's the difference?" She sat back on her heels, studying me. I got the sense she was deciding whether I was worth the trouble of an honest answer. Finally, she exhaled. "The difference is that resetting clears the error message. Fixing it means finding out why the sensor's failing in the first place." She gestured to the open panel. "This unit has a loose connection. Has for weeks. Every time it vibrates, someone bumps the table, a cart rolls by. The wire shifts and the readings go haywire. But nobody checks. They just hit reset and move on." I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the same one I used to get when a student came to me with a problem the administration wanted to ignore. "Why don't they check?" "Time." Alex pulled a small notebook from her pocket, flipped it open, and jotted something down. "Staff's stretched thin. Inspections get skipped. Maintenance requests pile up. Easier to call it a glitch than admit the equipment's failing." I watched her write, neat rows of dates and descriptions filling the page. "What is that?" She hesitated, then held it up so I could see. "My log. Every repair I make, every issue I find. Date, time, what I did." She closed it, slipping it back into her pocket. I started keeping it after I realized nobody else was. You ever meet someone and just know they're cut from the same cloth? That's what I felt standing there, watching this young woman document what everyone else ignored. It reminded me of my first year teaching, when I'd started writing down every time the heating broke in my classroom, every time the principal cancelled a parent meeting, every complaint that vanished into thin air. Evidence. Because without it, people could pretend nothing was wrong. 2 months ago, I said quietly, the medication dispenser on the 2nd floor jammed. Pills were everywhere. Staff cleaned it up, said it was fine. I paused. 3 weeks later, Mrs. Liu missed her blood pressure medication because the same dispenser skipped her dose. Nobody noticed until her daughter visited. Alex's expression shifted, something like recognition settling in. "Was there a report filed?" "I don't know, I asked. Got told it was handled." She nodded slowly, her jaw tight. "That's what they always say." The door opened and George poked his head in. He saw me, saw Alex, and his eyebrows lifted. "There you are." I was starting to worry. Just talking, I said. George, this is Alex. She does maintenance here. He stepped inside, his gaze flicking between us. Evening? He looked at the open panel, the scattered tools. Everything all right? Will be, Alex said. She stood, brushing dust from her knees. Just making sure this actually works instead of pretending it does. George's mouth twitched, almost a smile. He turned to me, and I saw it. The look he used to give me when I'd come home from a school board meeting, fired up and ready to fight for something. A mix of caution and pride, love and exasperation. He knew what that spark in my eyes meant. Alex packed her tools, quiet and efficient. Before she left, I touched her arm. If you're keeping a log, I said, I'd like to help. I notice things too. She studied me again, longer this time. Then she nodded. Okay, but we keep it quiet. I can't afford to lose this job. Understood. She slipped out, leaving George and me alone in the common room. He sighed. Eleanor, I know. Do you? I looked at the monitor, now displaying steady, reasonable numbers. Someone has to pay attention, George. If not us, then who? He didn't answer. He just took my hand, and we walked back to our apartment together, the hallway, quiet around us. The next morning, I met Alex in the East Wing at 7, before most residents stirred. She carried a canvas bag stuffed with tools and that little notebook, her face serious in the early light. I'd brought my own notebook, nothing fancy, just a spiral-bound pad I'd used for grocery lists, and a pen that actually worked. Start here, Alex said, stopping at a blood pressure cuff mounted to the wall outside Mrs. Kapoor's door. She pressed the power button. The screen flickered twice, then displayed a reading, 210/140. I stared. That can't be right. It's not. Alex opened the casing, peered inside. Calibration's off. Has been for at least a month. I fixed it 3 weeks ago, but nobody replaced the faulty sensor, so it drifted again. She made a note. If someone used this without checking manually first, they'd panic. Call 911, start emergency protocols, all for a broken sensor. I wrote it down. Date, location, problem. My handwriting looked shaky next to hers, but I kept going. We moved through the wing methodically, medication timers showing incorrect doses, oxygen monitors that blinked red even when saturation was normal, a fall detection mat in Mr. Brennan's room that hadn't triggered in 6 weeks. Alex tested it by dropping her bag, and nothing happened. She opened the base, found a disconnected wire, reconnected it. The system beeped to life. How long has that been out? I asked. At least 2 months. I reported it in May. Work orders still pending. I felt that tightness again, spreading from my chest to my throat. What if he'd fallen? Alex didn't answer. She just wrote it down. By the time we reached the common room again, my notebook had 7 entries. 7 devices, 7 problems, 7 things that could have hurt someone if the timing had been worse. And those were just the ones we'd checked in an hour. George appeared around 9, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me, nodded at Alex. Find anything? Too much, I said. He looked at my notebook, his expression unreadable. Then he sat on the arm of the sofa, watching us work. I could feel his worry like a weight in the room, but he didn't tell me to stop. That was something. Alex finished testing the main monitor, the one that had started all this, and sat back on her heels. See the pattern? I did. It's not random. These are all devices that should be inspected monthly, None of them are new failures. Exactly. She opened her log, flipped back several pages. June, 4 skipped inspections. July, 6. August, 9. Every month, fewer checks, more problems. I fix what I can on my own time, but I can't catch everything. Why not just report it? George asked, his voice quiet but firm. Alex looked at him. I tried. First month I was here, I filed 12 maintenance requests. Got called into the supervisor's office, told I was creating unnecessary work and alarming residents. They said if I kept it up, they'd let me go. She closed the log. So I stopped reporting, started fixing things myself and keeping records instead. I felt something shift inside me, a familiar determination I hadn't felt in years. You're building a case. I'm covering my arse, Alex said bluntly. But yeah, if something goes really wrong, I want proof I tried. George set his coffee down. And if we help you document this, what then? Alex met his gaze. Then maybe we have enough to make someone actually listen. I looked at George. He looked at me. And in that moment, I saw the same spark I'd felt yesterday, reflected back. Not just observation anymore. Participation. All right, George said. What do you need us to do? The first warning came during lunch. I was picking at my overdressed Caesar salad when Ms. Cartwright approached our table. I'd seen the administrator twice in 3 months, both times during prospective resident tours. Today she wore a navy blazer and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I understand you've been observing our equipment, she said, skipping pleasantries. We appreciate engagement, but we have protocols. If you notice concerns, please use the front desk. We wouldn't want residents troubling themselves with technical matters or worrying others unnecessarily. There it was, veiled, polite, unmistakable. George set down his fork. We're not troubling anyone. She patted my shoulder, oddly patronizing, and left. She knows, Aida, I said. Someone talked, or saw you with Alex. I don't care. People could get hurt, are getting hurt. I lowered my voice. I won't stop because it makes them uncomfortable. He touched my hand. I'm not asking you to, but let me handle staff conversations. You keep working with Alex. I'm better at playing nice. You never could hide what you're thinking. Right now, we need someone who can smile and nod while you dig. He was right. I hated it, but nodded. The second warning came that afternoon. An unfamiliar nurse found me outside our apartment, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Clark, I need to review your medication schedule. I don't take medications. She frowned at her clipboard. My mistake. But she didn't leave. Some residents find assisted living stressful. If you're feeling anxious or overly concerned about things, we have counseling services. I stared. I'm fine. Of course. But if you find yourself dwelling on worries that aren't yours to carry... She smiled and left. I stood there, hands shaking. Not from fear, from anger. They were painting me as paranoid, unstable, a worried old woman imagining problems. I'd dealt with worse. School boards cutting science funding, fathers talking over me to male colleagues, department heads calling me too emotional about test scores. I'd outlasted all of them. George spent the rest of the day chatting with staff, complimenting the kitchen, asking casual questions about maintenance schedules. Decades of engineering meetings had taught him to extract information without seeming to pry. That night, Alex knocked, carrying a laptop and battle-worn messenger bag. George checked the hall before closing the door. Thought you should see this. She opened a folder labeled Equipment Logs, Personal Archive. The list went on for pages. I scrolled slowly, chest tightening. March 12th. Defibrillator battery dead, discovered during off-schedule check, replaced 2 weeks later. April 3rd. Medication dispenser jammed, double dose to 4C. Documented, no follow-up. May 20th. Fall mat sensors offline in 6 rooms, repairs pending. June 8th. Blood oxygen monitor false readings, calibration overdue by 90 days, 18 months of entries, hundreds of them. This isn't a maintenance problem, I said quietly. This is systematic neglect. Alex nodded. And it's getting worse. George's hand found mine, squeezed once. When I looked up, I saw what I felt. Not fear, but purpose. We weren't stopping now. Alex spread the laptop on our small kitchen table, adjusting the screen so we could all see. George pulled up a chair, reading glasses perched on his nose. I stood behind them both, one hand braced on the table. The log itself is damning, Alex said, but it's what's missing that should scare you. She opened a second file, official maintenance records from the facility. I leaned closer. These don't match. No, Alex tapped the screen. According to their records, the defibrillator battery I replaced in March already serviced 2 weeks prior. The medication dispenser that jammed, never logged. The full mat sensors, marked as functioning perfectly. George's jaw tightened. They're falsifying reports. Not always. Sometimes they just don't write anything down. Equipment fails, someone fixes it, usually me, and it vanishes from the official record. No paper trail means no accountability. No accountability means no budget allocated for proper maintenance. I pulled out a chair, sat slowly. The implications were staggering. So when corporate or inspectors review the records, I said, everything looks fine. Exactly, clean paperwork, happy inspectors. Meanwhile, residents live with broken safety equipment. Alex scrolled to another entry. Her voice dropped lower. June 15th. Mr. Patel in 6B collapsed. His call button had been malfunctioning for 3 days. I'd submitted a work order, marked urgent. Staff told him it was fine, probably user error. When he fell, he couldn't call for help. Lay there 90 minutes before his daughter found him during a visit. My stomach turned. Was he survived. Broken hip, pneumonia from lying on the floor. He's in long-term care now. She met my eyes. He'd still be here if the button worked. It would have taken me 10 minutes to fix. George removed his glasses, rubbed his face. I knew that gesture. He did it when numbers stopped making sense, when logic failed and emotion took over. How many incidents like that? He asked quietly. 7 I know of. Probably more I don't. 7 people, harmed because someone decided saving money mattered more than safety. 7 families who trusted this place, paid good money, believed their loved ones were protected. I thought of the administrator's patronizing smile. The nurse suggesting I was anxious, overly worried. They knew. Of course they knew. Show us the worst one, I said. Alex hesitated, then opened another file. A photograph. I recognized the medical monitoring device from the common room, the one that had started everything. January, Mrs. Chen, early Alzheimer's. Device showed stable vitals all night. Staff checked the readout. Everything normal. Morning shift found her unresponsive. Heart attack, maybe 8 hours prior. George stood abruptly, walked to the window. The device was giving false readings, Alex continued. Sensor calibration was 6 months overdue. I'd flagged it twice. Work order got bumped for non-critical maintenance. Her voice cracked slightly. She died because no one wanted to spend $200 on a replacement sensor. The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I'd taught for 37 years. I'd seen budget cuts prioritize appearances over education, seen administrators choose test scores over student welfare. But this was different. This was choosing profit over human life, actively covering it up, and silencing anyone who questioned. George turned from the window. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. "We can't let this continue." "No," I agreed. "We can't." Alex closed the laptop. "I have documentation going back 18 months. Photographs, work orders, timestamps, everything cross-referenced. If we could get residents to share their experiences, medical records showing harm, we'd have a case," George finished. I looked at my husband, cautious, careful George, who'd spent 40 years calculating risk, measuring twice and cutting once. He was frightened. I could see it in the set of his shoulders. But he was also angry, and George's anger was a quiet, methodical thing. "We'll need to be smart," he said. "Organized. Document everything. Build credibility. Find allies." "The other residents trust you," Alex said to me. "They'll listen." Would they? Or would they be afraid, like I'd been warned to be? But then I thought of Mrs. Chen, Mr. Patel, the near misses Alex had prevented simply by doing her job properly. How many more would there be if we stayed silent? "We start tomorrow," I said. Carefully, one conversation at a time. The routine began before breakfast. 6:30 each morning, Alex arrived with her tablet and thermos of what she called coffee, but tasted like burned dirt. George made real coffee while I cleared the table for Alex's maintenance log and my notebook. "Oxygen concentrator, 3rd floor," Alex said that first Tuesday. "Pressure fluctuation at 2:15 a.m. Backup alarm never triggered." I wrote it down. Time, location, device, malfunction. George poured 3 mugs, particular about water rings, and reviewed yesterday's entries. "Second concentrator issue this week," he noted. "Third," Alex corrected. We worked in comfortable silence. Alex explained technical details. I documented them. George cross-referenced facility records he'd quietly requested, maintenance schedules, inspections, staff rotations. Funny how dangerous information becomes harmless when you ask politely. By 7:15, 4 devices to check, 3 residents to visit, 1 hallway camera temporarily offline for 6 days. "I'll take the concentrators," Alex said. "Less suspicious." "I'll visit Mrs. Kowalski." Her call button was sticking. George straightened his cardigan. "Board meeting agenda posts this morning. I'll check if equipment maintenance is listed." He'd been showing up places, asking questions in his mild way. Administrators talked more freely to a quiet older man than to his wife, whom they'd labeled a troublemaker. We were learning our roles. Mrs. Kowalski's apartment smelled like lavender and old books. She offered tea automatically. We never refused. "The button's been fine since Friday," she said, settling with an arthritic sigh. "That young technician fixed it, didn't even write it up." "Did you report it to staff?" "Twice. They said it was on the list." Her mouth tightened. "My daughter worries. She calls every night. For 3 days. 3 days of wondering if help would come. 3 days testing the button repeatedly. 3 days sleeping lighter." "You're not imagining things," I said. "It was broken. Alex fixed it. You deserve better than being on the list." Mrs. Kowalski nodded once. "Others have noticed you asking questions. Mr. Rodriguez, the Chens. We talk. We see things. What do you see? Corners cut, promises broken, staff stretched too thin, good people with too little support, and administrators who smile while equipment fails. If people wanted to share experiences, would they? Some would. Some are frightened. The Patels left after Aaron's fall. But others trust you, Eleanor. You've always been kind. You listen. I wrote nothing down, but remembered everything. That afternoon, George found me reviewing notes. Board agendas up. Zero mention of equipment maintenance. Landscaping budget increased 15%, though. Of course. Curb appeal mattered more than functioning call buttons. I spoke with 3 residents during lunch. Each mentioned at least one safety concern. Martin's shower rail, 11 days. Richardson's medication alarm, missed doses for a week. George was organizing testimony without calling it that, building a case without admitting it. Administrators are asking questions. Why Alex is here so often. Whether she's cleared for resident apartments. My chest tightened. She has every right. I know, but they're watching. He touched my hand. Document everything, but carefully. Alex appeared, toolbox in hand, face neutral. She crossed slowly, knelt beside. The oxygen concentrator, began a routine inspection. Across the room, the floor supervisor watched with folded arms. We were running out of time to stay invisible. That evening, a memo appeared under every resident's door. All maintenance concerns must be reported through official channels. Residents are prohibited from engaging unauthorized personnel for repairs or documentation. Violation may result in service restrictions. George read it twice. They know. I crumpled the paper, then smoothed it flat again. Evidence. Always evidence. They're trying to scare us. It's working, he said quietly. Alex didn't show for morning coffee. 7 o'clock became 7:15. George refilled his mug twice, watching the door. I reorganized my notes, fighting the hollow feeling in my stomach. At 7:20, she texted, "Can't come today. Sorry." "She's frightened," I said. George set down his mug carefully. "She should be. We all should be. So we stop." I didn't say that. But his voice carried doubt, and doubt was contagious. I grabbed my cardigan. "I'm going to find her." The maintenance office occupied a converted storage room near the loading dock. Alex sat on an overturned bucket, staring at her tablet. "They called me into HR," she said without preamble. Threatened termination, said I was overstepping, interfering with resident autonomy. My presence was creating anxiety. The absurdity would have been funny if her hands weren't shaking. I pulled up a plastic crate. "What did you say?" "Nothing. What could I say? I am unauthorized. I don't have clearance. Technically, every repair I've documented saved lives. Doesn't matter if I'm fired." She looked young suddenly, 20-something, drowning in student debt, clinging to this job despite everything wrong with it. I thought of my classroom decades ago. The year administration wanted me to pass a student who hadn't earned it. Football scholarship, influential parents. The vice principal implied my career depended on flexibility. I'd given the boy an F. He retook the class, graduated, sent me a thank you card years later. "You think your job is more important than their safety?" I asked. "I think unemployment won't help anyone." True, but silence guarantees nothing changes. I leaned forward. I spent 40 years navigating bureaucracy, school boards, superintendents, Parents who thought money bought grades. You know what I learned? She waited. They threaten loudest when they're most vulnerable. That memo, panic. They know what we're finding, and they're scared we'll share it. So they'll destroy me first. Not if we're careful. Not if we build something they can't ignore. I gentled my voice. I'm not asking you to be reckless. I'm asking you to trust that experience counts. That George and I know how to navigate authority without triggering nuclear options. You don't know these people. I know bureaucrats. Same species, different habitat. She almost smiled. Keep your head down at work, I continued. Do assigned tasks, clock in, clock out. But what you document on your own time, in your own records, shared with friends, that's yours. They'll call it a violation. Let them prove it. Meanwhile, George and I document from the residents' side. Mrs. Kowalski, the Chens, others, their testimony is protected. They're reporting legitimate concerns through official channels while happening to keep personal records. Alex looked at her tablet. You're splitting the operation. I'm protecting you while continuing the work. Different approach, same goal. She breathed slowly. If I lose this job, we'll face that if it comes. But right now we have a chance. George found me that afternoon near the mailboxes. Jamie spoke to me. I blinked. Jamie from dietary? She's noticed things. Equipment ignored. Complaints dismissed. Said if anyone ever needed information about scheduling patterns, she might accidentally leave documents near the recycling. Jamie. Quiet, efficient Jamie, who'd worked here 7 years. Did you ask? She volunteered. Quietly, very quietly. He handed me a folded paper. Next week's maintenance schedule. Note the gaps. 3 days with 0 equipment checks scheduled during the complex's busiest period. How many others? I asked. Don't know, but we're not alone. That evening, Alex messaged. Check 3B oxygen monitor, numbers off. I knocked on George's armrest. We need to move. Room 3B belonged to Mr. Hartley, 79, emphysema, oxygen dependent. His monitor blinked amber when it should have glowed green. Alex crouched beside the unit. Calibration's drifting, reporting 92% saturation. She tapped her portable meter. Actual level? 86? Dangerously low. George leaned closer. How long until the alarm triggers? Could be hours, could be never. The sensor's failing, reporting false normals while he suffocates. Mr. Hartley dozed in his recliner, completely unaware. Can you fix it? I asked. Not supposed to. Protocol says tag it for replacement and move him to temporary quarters. How long? Week, minimum. He doesn't have a week. She met my eyes. I know. Her hands were already moving. I documented everything. Time, resident, device serial number, false reading, actual reading. Alex worked fast. George stood guard at the door. Got it. She snapped the panel back. Testing now. The monitor recalibrated, glowed green. New reading, 86%. Honest numbers. The alarm chimed, low oxygen warning. Mr. Hartley stirred. What's that noise? Your monitor needed adjustment, I said gently. We're increasing your oxygen flow. Alex twisted the regulator. His breathing eased. I photographed everything. Evidence. The night nurse arrived 12 minutes later. What happened? Monitor malfunction. False readings. Mr. Hartley's saturation dropped to 86. She checked the display. Who adjusted this? Does it matter? He's stable now. Protocol almost killed him. My voice stayed level. 40 years of parent-teacher conferences taught me calm authority. The device failed. Someone fixed it. Mr. Hartley is breathing properly. Those are the facts. She looked at Alex. You're not authorized. I documented the malfunction, Alex said. Here's the timestamp, error log, everything for the incident report. The nurse's expression flickered. I have to report this. Please do, I said. Include the part where faulty equipment endangered a resident's life. George exhaled. That went well. Did it? Alex's hands trembled. She's filing a report. They'll know I accessed the device. They'll know someone prevented a tragedy. Let them spin that however they want. The administrator called me at 9 a.m. Mr. Brennan, mid-50s, expensive suit, practiced smile. Mrs. Hayes, I understand there was an incident last night. I sat without waiting. Device malfunction. Yes. Our staff handled it appropriately. Your staff arrived after the repair. The resident was in respiratory distress for an unknown duration. The equipment functioned within acceptable parameters. It reported false reading while Mr. Hartley's oxygen dropped to dangerous levels. I have documentation. His smile thinned. Unqualified individuals tampering with medical devices creates liability concerns. Unqualified? The person who identified the failure has maintained detailed equipment logs for months. Perhaps we should discuss why certified staff missed a critical malfunction. These things happen 3 times this month. Chance or pattern? The smile vanished. I'd hate for unfounded accusations to create anxiety among residents, especially given how dependent everyone is on facility goodwill. There it was, the threat. Mr. Brennan, I leaned forward. I taught high school for 40 years. I've heard every version of stay quiet or else, usually from people protecting something they shouldn't. I'm protecting residents from panic. You're protecting yourself from accountability. His face hardened. This conversation is over. For now, I agreed. George waited in the hallway. How bad? He threatened. Politely. And you? Declined to be intimidated. Politely. We walked toward the common room. My hands weren't shaking. Adrenaline worked the same at 70 as at 30. This is going to get worse, George said. I know. Are we sure Mr. Hartley is alive because someone cared enough to act? Yes, George, I'm sure. By afternoon, 3 residents approached me privately. Mrs. Kowalski, I heard what you did. My daughter's a nurse. She says false readings are serious. Mr. Chen, the blood pressure cuff gave me weird numbers last week. Should I worry? Mrs. Abbott, if you're keeping track of problems, I remember when... Small voices, careful questions, people who'd stayed silent because silence felt safer. I listened, took notes, thanked them. George watched from across the room, and when our eyes met, I saw understanding. We weren't just protecting residents anymore. We were teaching them they could protect themselves. Alex called at 6:30. The log, section 4, it's gone. I pulled on my robe. Gone how? Deleted. 3 weeks of entries, device failures, timestamps, photos, everything. George appeared in the doorway, pulling on his cardigan. Can you recover it? I asked. I tried. Nothing. Come to our apartment. Bring what you have. She arrived 20 minutes later, pale and hollow-eyed. George poured coffee while I cleared the table. Alex opened her tablet. Section 1 through 3 are intact, but Section 4, the past 3 weeks, all the recent critical failures, it's blank. The ones we were building the case around, George said. I studied the screen. What about my photographs, my notes? You documented some, but the technical data, error codes, serial numbers, exact timestamps, that was Section 4. Without it, we can't prove the pattern. George sat heavily. Could it have been sabotage? Maybe. The system doesn't show unauthorized access, but someone with admin privileges wouldn't leave traces. Or an accident, I said, which doesn't help either way. Alex's hands shook. I should have made redundant backups. Should have. You're one person doing an entire department's work, I interrupted. Don't blame yourself. But if we can't prove, we rebuild differently. George paced. Maybe this is a sign we should step back. We've documented problems, alerted staff. Perhaps that's enough. Enough for what? Enough to have made a difference without risking everything. Mr. Hartley nearly died. That's not enough. And if pushing further gets Alex fired, gets us evicted, so we let them win? We've lost our strongest evidence. Maybe we accept that and focus on smaller, safer interventions. Heat rose in my chest. When did you become so afraid? The words came out sharper than intended. George's face went tight. I'm trying to protect us. By giving up. By being realistic. Alex set down her mug. Maybe George is right. Without Section 4, we don't have enough. And if I keep pushing, I'll lose my job. Then nobody's monitoring anything. You're both scared. I understand. I'm scared too. Then why? Because being scared and being right aren't mutually exclusive. I pulled out my notebook. Mrs. Kowalski, Mr. Chen, Mrs. Abbott. They started speaking up because someone listened. That matters. Does it matter enough? George asked. Yes. Alex traced her mug's rim. Even if we rebuild, it'll take months. And we can't prove the deleted section existed. They could say we fabricated everything. Not if residents corroborate. Mrs. Abbott remembers her medication dispenser malfunctioning. Mr. Chen has his blood pressure readings. We reconstruct through witness accounts. Witness accounts from elderly residents? George shook his head. Brennan will dismiss them as confused. Then we make them impossible to dismiss. Detailed interviews, cross-referenced dates, medical records. That's massive. Yes, it is. George met my eyes. You're not letting this go. No. Even if it risks our place here? Especially then. If we can be pushed out for asking questions, nobody's safe. Alex closed her tablet. I need to think. The log was everything. Without it. She stood abruptly. I'll call later. She left before I could respond. George exhaled. That went well. She needs time. We all do. He rubbed his temples. I'm not trying to sabotage this. I'm trying to keep us from getting hurt. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you see me as the obstacle instead of your partner. The words stung because they held truth. I see you as someone I love, someone whose caution I respect, even when I don't agree. But you're going forward regardless. Not without Alex. Not without you. He looked at me for a long moment. What do you need? Honesty. If you truly think this is too dangerous, tell me. But if you're just afraid, stay afraid and help anyway." His laugh was soft, tired. "That's asking a lot." "I know." The morning passed in careful silence. George made lunch: turkey sandwiches, sliced apples, chamomile tea. Through the window, I watched residents shuffle past, lives depending on systems we'd assumed trustworthy. "I keep thinking about students who struggled," I said. "Colleagues who'd say, 'Some kids just can't be helped.' If we stop now, we're saying their safety doesn't matter." George took my hand. "I married a woman who refuses easy answers." "Is that a compliment or complaint?" "Both. Always both." At 3 o'clock, Alex called. "Brennan found the logs. Security caught me accessing the database after hours. He wants me in his office in 20 minutes. Don't go alone. We'll be there." Mrs. Kowalski intercepted us near the elevator. "That girl who fixes things quietly, I heard she's in trouble. Whatever you're doing, some of us notice. Some of us are grateful." "Thank you, Helena. Be careful. They don't like being questioned." Brennan's door was half open. Inside, Alex sat rigid. "This is a private personnel matter," he said. "We'd like to observe," I said. "Alex has been documenting safety issues at our request." George raised his camera. "We'd like this documented." Brennan's face flushed. "You will not." "Then we'll take notes." I pulled out my notebook. "Alex, you're terminated effective immediately, Viston," Brennan said. "On what grounds?" "Insubordination, unauthorized access." "Policies designed to protect residents or management?" His voice dropped. "If you continue interfering, I'll review your lease agreement." George went still. "Are you threatening us?" "I'm reminding you this facility operates on mutual respect. Residents who undermine staff morale jeopardize that cooperation." Alex stood. "I'll go." Brennan's expression softened. Performative sympathy. "If you'd simply reported through proper channels ignored those concerns for months." Alex paused at the door. "The equipment in Wing C, Room 14, Mr. Hartley's monitoring unit. Last verified service was 8 months ago, not 3 weeks like the paperwork says. If his oxygen levels drop tonight, that device won't alert anyone. Proper channels." She left. I followed. Alex was already at the elevator. "Wait." She turned, eyes bright. "I'm done. Without access, I can't monitor anything. You should drop this before he evicts you too." "We're not dropping anything." "Then you're fools." The doors closed. George emerged, face grim. He refused documentation, said if we pursue this, he'll file harassment complaints. I looked down the hallway. He's scared. He's powerful. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Our apartment. We need to organize everything. By evening, our dining table was covered in evidence. Photographs, my timeline, notes from residents. "We need formal statements from residents willing to go on record," I said. "Most are terrified." "Then we start with those who aren't. Helena Kowalski, Robert Chen, Margaret Abbott." "Who do we give them to?" "State regulators, ombudsman, local media if necessary." "That's nuclear." "So is letting people die." He looked at the papers. "You really think we can do this?" "Alex documented everything. Residents are watching. We just need to start. And if we lose our home, then we find another. But at least we tried." A knock. Mrs. Kowalski stood holding a folded paper. A petition. 37 signatures. We, the undersigned residents, request an independent safety audit of all medical monitoring equipment and a formal review of maintenance protocols. You've been fighting for us. Time we fought too. George stared. This is everyone on floors 2 and 3. And growing. Margaret's collecting signatures on 4 now. I looked at the names, people too afraid to speak now standing together. Thank you. Thank me when we win. What do you need us to do? The conference room smelled of old carpet and industrial coffee. 8 board members sat along the worn mahogany table. George squeezed my hand. Alex stood by the window, arms crossed. Mrs. Preston, Mr. Preston, Board Chair Anderson said. Please proceed. I stood, smoothing my skirt, an old teacher habit. We've documented systemic maintenance failures endangering every resident here. Brennan leaned forward. That's serious. Evidence? George opened the first folder. 37 device anomalies documented March through May. 12 instances where monitoring equipment failed during critical readings. I distributed photocopies. Alex Chen maintained a meticulous log of every repair, skipped inspection, and falsified service report. Anderson studied the pages. These are technical. Then let me simplify. Mrs. Abbott's blood. Pressure monitor malfunctioned April 14th. Service logs claim inspection 3 weeks prior. Actual inspection occurred 7 months ago. Alex repaired it herself. We rely on contracted vendors, Brennan said smoothly. Your staff signed off on inspections that never occurred, George said. Either protocols failed or someone falsified documentation. Either way, residents were endangered. Alex stepped forward, placing 2 oxygen monitors on the table. This passed inspection last month. She activated it. The display flickered erratically. Calibration's off 18%. If Mr. Hartley's oxygen dropped tonight, this wouldn't register accurately. She activated the second monitor, steady, precise. This I repaired myself. It works because I tested it. Board member Chen leaned closer. How many show similar problems? 42 verified. Potentially more. Malfunctions happen, Brennan said. Not at this frequency. I opened my timeline. November, Mrs. Patterson's cardiac monitor failed during arrhythmia. January, Mr. Rodriguez's glucose monitor showed normal during hypoglycemia. March, hallway call button unresponsive 6 days. Those were addressed. After incidents occurred, we're discussing prevention. Anderson raised his hand. Do residents wish to speak? Mrs. Kowalski entered with Margaret Abbott and Robert Chen. Helena stepped forward with quiet dignity. My husband died from equipment malfunction. I moved here because your brochures promised safety. Without these people paying attention, I might have become another statistic. Margaret nodded. I served 30 years as surgical nurse. This is institutional negligence, not isolated incidents. Robert placed his cane against the table. I'm 81. I accept my body's failing. Not that safety systems are failing faster. Brennan shifted. These residents have been influenced. Are you calling us liars? Helena's voice cut sharp. I taught mathematics 40 years, I said quietly. Emotion doesn't change data. 37 failures, 12 critical incidents, 42 dangerous devices in use. Facts. George stood beside me. We're asking for accountability, independent audit, transparent protocols, reinstatement of the person who kept residents safe. Anderson looked at Alex. You were terminated for insubordination? For documenting problems management ignored? Why not report properly? I tried for 8 months. Requests disappeared. I started fixing things because waiting meant people got hurt. The board conferred in whispers. Finally, Anderson spoke. We'll authorize independent safety audit immediately. All monitoring equipment inspected by third-party technicians within 2 weeks. Brennan's jaw tightened. Ms. Chen, your termination is suspended pending results. You'll work with the inspection team. Alex's shoulders dropped. And if the audit confirms our findings, George asked, we'll address systemic failures appropriately. Outside, Helena hugged me. You did it. We all did. Alex leaned against the wall. They'll bury this. Not if we stay vigilant, I said. The petition has 63 signatures. Families are asking questions. George checked his watch. Dinner? Exhausted. Tea then. Our apartment. In our living room, surrounded by weeks of evidence, I felt something shift. Not victory, but possibility. Alex cradled her mug. Thank you for not giving up. We're not done. Audits can be manipulated. We need to monitor the monitors. George smiled. Recursive vigilance. Very you. Compliment or complaint? Always both. What would the inspection reveal? And would truth be enough? The inspection team arrived Tuesday morning, 3 technicians with clipboards and testing equipment. I watched from the common room, cataloguing every device they examined. Alex shadowed them, pointing out units she'd flagged. Her termination suspension meant she worked under scrutiny, every action monitored by Brennan's assistant. Mrs. Preston, Margaret Abbott sat beside me. What happens if the audit clears them? Then we document the audit itself. She smiled. You really were a teacher. 32 years, you learn persistence or you drown in paperwork. By afternoon, I'd gathered 12 residents in the library. Helena, Robert, Mrs. Kowalski, the Hartleys, Mr. Rodriguez with his daughter translating. The audit's step 1, I said. We need ongoing oversight, eyes on maintenance schedules, safety protocols, staff training. They'll say we're overreaching, Robert said. Let them. We're residents, not prisoners. We have rights. Helena raised her hand. Old classroom habits die hard. What specifically? I distributed my typed proposal. Monthly Safety Committee. Resident representatives review maintenance logs, attend board meetings, receive incident reports within 48 hours. They'll never agree, Mrs. Hartley said quietly. Then we make it uncomfortable to refuse. Families, advocacy groups, health inspectors. Sunshine's the best disinfectant. George entered with a stack of folders. Formal statements from 17 families, 3 are attorneys, 2 work in healthcare administration. I felt warmth bloom in my chest, my cautious husband becoming an organizer. Mr. Rodriguez's daughter contacted the state ombudsman, George continued. They're opening preliminary inquiry based on complaint volume. How many complaints? Robert asked. 23 in 6 weeks. Usually they receive 4 annually from facilities this size. Helena whistled. That'll get attention. That evening, Alex appeared at our door holding her tablet. They found 41 defective units, 19 critical, 22 moderate risk, Brennan's claiming vendor fraud. George poured tea. Deflection? Partial truth. Vendors skipped inspections. But staff signed off without verifying. Both parties negligent. I scanned her notes. Recommendations? Third-party monthly inspections, staff training on equipment protocols, maintenance database accessible to residents, and... She paused. They want me to implement it. Official position? Safety Compliance Coordinator. Probationary, but paid. I hugged her. You earned this. I documented failures. You made people care. George raised his mug. To uncomfortable partnerships. We clinked ceramic. Wednesday's board meeting felt different. Anderson acknowledged audit results publicly, his tone clipped but factual. Systemic lapses occurred. We're implementing corrective measures immediately. Brennan added, smooth as ever, we appreciate resident vigilance and look forward to collaborative oversight. Translation: they couldn't ignore us anymore. I stood. We propose formal safety committee, resident members with access to maintenance records and monthly reporting. That's unusual, Anderson said carefully. So is 41 defective devices, Helena said from the back. Margaret stood. I'll serve. 30 years nursing experience. Robert raised his cane. Engineering background. I'm in. 5 more residents volunteered. Anderson exchanged glances with the board. We'll draft guidelines for committee structure. Review next month. Not rejection, not quite acceptance. Progress. Outside, George took my arm. How'd you get them organized so fast? Phone tree. You think I spent 30 years teaching without learning how to mobilize? Terrifying and impressive. Alex joined us, grinning. Brennan looked like he swallowed glass. He's protecting his career, I said, but he's smart enough to recognize when resistance costs more than cooperation. Think he'll actually change? Alex asked. I think we'll make sure he doesn't have a choice. That night, George found me reviewing committee proposals at the kitchen table. You should rest. Can't. Momentum's fragile. We ease up, they backslide. He sat across from me. Remember when you said you were tired of watching? I remember wanting purpose. Found it? I looked at the folders, the resident signatures, Alex's detailed safety protocols, small acts accumulating into something larger. I found people who refuse to accept that's just how things are. That's better than purpose. That's possibility. George covered my hand with his. Then we keep going. Together? Always. Thursday morning shattered our momentum. Anderson's 7:15 email demanded original equipment purchase documentation plus notarized maintenance certifications within 72 hours, or our findings were inadmissible. George looked over my shoulder. They can't. New regulatory framework, last month. My hand trembled. I thought of Alex's logs, our photographs, testimonies. Nothing notarized. Nothing with vendor paperwork. We don't have it. Alex arrived in 20 minutes, hair unbrushed. After reading the email, her jaw tightened. Anderson knew this code change was coming. Let us build our case, then pulled the rug. Out. Can we get documentation? I asked. She checked her tablet. Original purchase orders are archived off-site. Retrieval takes weeks. Notarized certifications require licensed inspectors. Earliest appointments next Tuesday. Past the deadline. 41 defective units, mobilized families, state inquiry, all meaningless without meeting this tripwire. We spent the morning calling vendors, agencies. Same answer everywhere. Processes can't be rushed. By noon, Helena arrived with sandwiches. What do you need? Original purchase documentation and notarized maintenance certifications dating back 18 months. She paused. Did Alex check insurance files? Facilities this size carry equipment liability coverage. Insurers require documentation of everything. Alex called the complex's broker. They have digitized records going back 3 years, certified copies in 4 hours. What about certifications? I asked. I kept work orders, Every repair logged, but not notarized. Who approved equipment access? George asked. Alex's eyes widened. The maintenance supervisor, Mr. Chen. He gave me keycard access, logged my entries in security. Security logs are time-stamped, automatically backed up, George said. Electronic notarization. Not legally equivalent, Alex countered. But corroborating, I said. Your work orders matched against Chen's logs, security timestamps and insurance documentation. It's verifiable. We worked through the afternoon. By 6, we had 78 pages. Think it's enough? Alex asked. It proves equipment failures occurred, insurance knew risks, and your interventions were logged. That's institutional knowledge, not inadmissible. George added witness statements. 12 corroborations. We need someone with regulatory authority to validate our methodology, I said. The state ombudsman, Mr. Rodriguez's daughter, contacted them. 6:40. Leave a message. Tomorrow we hand deliver everything. At 10, we had a complete package. What if they reject it? Alex asked. I looked at the documentation. Then we appeal. But they can't ignore this. George's phone buzzed. Email from the Ombudsman's office, time-stamped 10/12. Findings appear substantive. We'll review materials and provide determination. Documentation methods accepted pending verification. Alex reread it. They're actually reviewing. Something unlocked in my chest. Not victory, but validation. Now what? George smiled. Now we wait. Together. Friday afternoon, the complex's conference room smelled like furniture polish and the bitter edge of nervous sweat. I sat between George and Alex, our documentation stacked before us. 15 residents filled the chairs behind, witnesses, allies, proof that silence no longer protected anyone. Anderson entered last, followed by 2 board members and a woman I didn't recognize. State Ombudsman Sharon Keller, she introduced herself. Her handshake was firm, her eyes sharp. I've reviewed your materials. My pulse quickened. Keller spoke for 12 minutes, methodical and clear. Equipment failures documented. Insurance liability confirmed. Security logs verified Alex's interventions. Witness testimony consistent across demographics. Systemic negligence occurred, Keller concluded. Not malice, but institutional failure to prioritize resident safety over operational convenience. Anderson's jaw tightened. Effective immediately, Keller continued. This facility will implement enhanced safety protocols, monthly equipment audits, mandatory staff training, transparent incident reporting. Ms. Chen, she nodded at Alex, will be offered a formal contract as lead maintenance coordinator with oversight authority. I felt George's hand find mine. The meeting ended at 4:17. In the hallway, residents surrounded us. Quiet congratulations, tentative smiles. Mrs. Rodriguez hugged Alex, tears streaming. You saved my husband's life. Alex looked stunned. I just fixed machines. You cared when nobody else did, I said. That evening, someone organized a potluck in the common room. Casseroles appeared, homemade bread, a chocolate cake with thank you written in shaky icing. George carried chairs while I arranged serving tables, the familiar rhythm of decades together settling over us like muscle memory. I thought of the schoolroom parties I'd hosted, students celebrating small victories, parents grateful for advocacy. This felt different, heavier. We hadn't just protected test scores or scholarship chances. We'd fought for lives, for dignity, for the belief that systems could still answer to people. Alex arrived hesitantly, carrying flowers someone had left at her door. Sit, I told her. You're guest of honor. I'm terrible at parties. Good. So am I. I handed her a plate. Eat anyway. Around 7, George stood and tapped his glass. The room quieted. I'm not much for speeches, he began. His voice carried that steady engineer's cadence, measured, purposeful. But I wanted to say, Eleanor and I moved here thinking we'd found a place to rest, a place where someone else handled the hard stuff. He glanced at me. Turns out rest isn't the same as abdication, and trust needs maintenance, just like equipment. Soft laughter rippled through the room. Alex taught us that systems fail when nobody checks them. Eleanor reminded me that speaking up isn't recklessness, it's responsibility. He raised his glass. To everyone who chose courage over comfort. Glasses clinked. Someone started clapping, and the sound built until the whole room joined in. I caught Alex wiping her eyes. Later, Helena cornered me by the dessert table. You changed this place, she said quietly. Staff are actually reading protocols now. Administration's scrambling to install new monitoring software. People are paying attention. That was the point. I know. She hesitated. I should have listened sooner. When you first mentioned concerns, I thought you were just another worried resident. And now? Now I know better. Her smile was rueful. Thank you for not giving up on us. At 9, the party wound down. George and I walked back to our apartment, the hallway lights soft and familiar. My feet ached. Good pain, the kind that comes from standing for something. Think it'll stick? George asked. The new protocols. If we stay vigilant, if Alex keeps her logs, if residents remember they have power. He unlocked our door. Big ifs. Always are. I kicked off my shoes, feeling the day's weight settle into my bones. But we proved systems can bend when enough people push. That's not nothing. George pulled me close, and I leaned into him. Decades of marriage compressed into one quiet embrace. You're proud, he murmured, exhausted. Both, then. I smiled against his shoulder. Both. The next morning, I found Alex kneeling beside the third-floor oxygen monitor, tools spread across newspaper. Calibrating, she said. New protocol requires weekly checks. I settled nearby, watching her practiced movements. How does it feel? Having official authority? She paused. Weird. Good weird. Like I can finally fix things right instead of sneaking around. You were always fixing things right. Yeah, but now nobody can tell me to stop. Her smile flickered. Anderson actually thanked me yesterday. I laughed. Progress comes in strange packages. George joined us at lunch with printouts. New maintenance schedule, he announced. Alex designed it, facilities approved it, and I've been tracking compliance. Obsessively documenting, he admitted, grinning. Turns out, retirement doesn't cure engineering habits. Alex studied his color-coded charts. You two are relentless. Learned from the best, I said. That afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez stopped me in the garden. My daughter visited yesterday, asked why I seemed happier. She smiled. I told her about the new systems, the safety checks. She said this place feels different now, more alive. I squeezed her hand. People always cared. They just needed permission to show it. Evening settled soft and golden. George and I sat on our balcony with Earl Grey tea, sipping in comfortable silence. That first morning when you heard the alarm, he said, I thought you were overreacting. You didn't say that. Didn't have to. His smile was sheepish. 43 years of marriage teaches you when your husband thinks you're being paranoid. And now? Now I know you were right. About the equipment, about everything, about how easy it is to stop paying attention. He reached for my hand. You reminded me we don't stop mattering just because we're older. Warmth spread through my chest. We reminded each other. Below, Alex crossed the courtyard, toolbox in hand. She waved up at us. Think she'll stay? George asked. Long as we keep her supplied with coffee. Sounds like family. The words settled. Between us, unexpected and true. Family by choice, by shared battle and earned trust. Alex with her quiet courage. The residents who'd found their voices. All of us building something better than what we'd inherited. Someone mentioned the medication distribution system has gaps, I said. He groaned, eyes sparkling. Of course you have. Just observations. It's a calling. He pulled me closer. Fine. We'll observe together. But maybe take a week off first. 3 days. 5. Deal. The sun dipped lower, painting everything amber and rose. I thought about the teacher I'd been, standing before classrooms, advocating for students, questioning policies. Decades of small battles accumulating into changed lives. Retirement hadn't ended that work. It had just shifted the classroom. Thank you for not stopping me, I said. His hand tightened on mine. Thank you for not letting me hide. We sat as twilight deepened. Two people who'd learned that age doesn't diminish responsibility, it refines it. That systems need constant maintenance. That courage is daily choices to stay engaged, stay curious, stay willing to push back. City lights flickered on like small promises. I felt the weight of what we'd reclaimed. Not just safety, but agency itself. The right to question, the power to act. The dignity of knowing our voices still carried weight. Somewhere inside, Alex was logging repairs. Residents trusted their routines. Tomorrow we'd do it again. The ordinary, essential work of caring enough to pay attention. I squeezed George's hand. He squeezed back. And that was everything.